everyone, welcome back to another show, the Life School MasterClass SHOW. I hope everyone has had a great week. And we're back again with another really special guest for me that I have on today. She is my business mentor and also a new author to her book, Travel Mania. Karen, thank you so much for finding time to have a really cool conversation about your latest book today.
I'm always happy to talk with you. Always.
Absolutely. So special to have you on my show today. So I'm sure I can't really introduce you correctly with everything, all your experience and your background. So I'm going to let you do a little introduction for our audience today.
Okay. We'll start with my very unusual background, which is my education was in ceramics, and I have a bachelor's and a master of ceramics. But my true love, and I started traveling by myself when I was 17, is travel. And I decided that being a ceramicist was never going to be able to pay for the kind of travel I wanted to do. So I went into business, ultimately becoming a marketing strategist, and have been one for a very long time. And then when I stopped that, I became a mentor to other entrepreneurs. But I've always traveled for fun and for business. And I wrote this book because I had so many stories, and I'd been telling them to friends for years. And everybody kept saying, you have to write them, you have to write them. And so I started writing them. And it turned into a book, which is now doing really well. It's out there. And people love it. People really, really love it. So, which makes me feel great. My goal is to get people to travel because I think it's just the best way of understanding the world. So.
Yeah, I really congratulate you on really fast success, which I'm not surprised why. I have to still grab a copy of the book myself. But what inspired you to start? You mentioned traveling was always one of your passions, and you also wanted to adapt your lifestyle so that you can actually get to do that. But what was maybe that aha moment that inspired you to start writing? Besides everyone telling you that you have stories to share, let's put them into a book.
There were a couple of things, and everybody's always surprised about some of these things because they go back to when I was a very small child. My mother, I grew up in New York City. I am a native New Yorker through and through. And my mother, for various reasons, couldn't travel. And so we traveled the world in New York City. And she took me to every ethnic restaurant there was. I tried everything. I was probably the only 8-year-old in New York when I was growing up, which is, I'm going to give away my age, but in the 50s, that loved sushi. I mean, it was, who then loved sushi? No one. And so and she took me to museums and the theater and all kinds of things that really, and I wanted to go see it for myself. So that was kind of the travel part of it. And she also encouraged me every time we went on a trip, even if it was like for a long weekend, to keep a travel journal. So I have travel journals that go back literally to when I'm 8 years old, with little drawings on them. They're really fun to look at. And so I've been keeping a travel journal my entire life. So I have lots and lots and lots of stories, and I don't travel the way a lot of people do. I rarely take tours. I go off and I just explore. And to me, that's the piece that's fun, is just going somewhere and learning about it. And so now we go back a little bit. I used to do ceramics, as I said, and then I became wildly allergic to all of the glaze materials, so I couldn't do that anymore. But I needed a creative outlet. So I started writing and took a bunch of writing workshops and writing classes and discovered that, in fact, I'm a good writer. And that, and the thing that I wrote about was travel. So that was how it came about.
Mm-hmm. Wow, it's amazing. So what I took out of the conversation is like how your mom was really one of the early influences in you sort of exploring and traveling and really opening up that horizon, because I really feel like personally traveling is like really empowering you and really growing you as a person, where you get exposure of all these different cultures, all these different other experiences that you wouldn't have the luck to do that otherwise. So that's really, really amazing way that, early on you started doing that. So then tell me, so you mentioned that you're more a spontaneous traveler.
Oh yeah.
So you just like to explore. So tell me about maybe how many places did you actually travel altogether that you maybe included in your book, so we get a better idea?
I did not include them all in the book. I couldn't possibly have. And in fact, I'm writing the second book. But I've been to 90 countries. I've been to all 50 states, all the Canadian provinces. And a lot of them I've been back to many, many times, which is one of the things that surprises people because, for example, 2 years ago, my nephew and his family were on sabbatical in Australia, and it's all come down and visit. And I would, tell various people I'm leaving for Australia. Oh, you'll love it. Well, I've been there before. Yeah, well, but have you been to? And of course, I've been there. And I finally would say to people, this is my 8th trip to Australia. And they'd look at me and go, your 8th trip to Australia? And I was like, yeah, because a lot of them I went to for business. That was one of the other things, was that I wanted work that would send me around the globe. And I really figured out how to do that because that was something I absolutely wanted. I wanted somebody else to pay for the airfare, quite honestly.
Yeah.
It's more fun. It's a different way of seeing a culture. If you're working in a culture, it's very different than being a traveler in a culture. Mm-hmm. And, you get to meet a lot of people. And to me, they're the ones who give me the best places to go and go look at this and go to that restaurant. So I did a lot of that. But to me, my other thing, and people keep asking me this, it's what's the thing that you do that will get you away from all of the tourist attractions? And to me, it's take a local bus, take a local subway, get off at a random stop and walk around. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You want to know how people live? That's how you do it.
Yeah, I love what you said, because that is so true. It's so different when you travel somewhere on vacation or for a short period of time, and when you actually, have a little routine there. Maybe you're going there for work, or you choose to live. I know there's a lot of people now that maybe just choose to live in different countries for maybe a month or so, depending on if their work allows them or they work virtually. And a lot more of that is going to come in the future, I feel like, as well. So it's yes, I guess one of the tips is really just get to speak to the locals, and then they're the ones that actually are going to refer different places that you might have really not found on Google, I guess, or just by doing a random search where the main tourist attractions are. I guess that could be a good tip for someone that is looking to do that. And also, Karen, what is a tip for someone that you've traveled to so many places, beside that you're able to actually get work projects and do that for work, but what is some maybe tips to save money for someone that wants to explore more and maybe are into the mindset of it costs too much, it takes a lot of time? What would you say to that?
First of all, I'm going to say that I traveled when I had no money at all. So we start there, that I have traveled on a budget of next to nothing. And it's perfectly possible to do. Some of it I wouldn't do anymore, because when I was younger, I would stay at youth hostels, and I'm a little too old for that now to want to do that. But so far as I'm concerned, you don't need to stay at 5-star hotels. All it needs to be is clean, in a convenient location, have a good shower and a good bed. Because I don't spend a whole lot of time in the hotel room. And to go spend an extravagant amount of money on a hotel means you can't do other things. So that's tip number one, is just find somewhere that meets whatever your basic minimums are. The next thing is look for deals. There are deals all the time. Now, if you've got kids and you have to do it when they're off from school, it's a little more difficult. That's true, and I understand that. But even with that, there are deals. And don't go, you may say, I really want to go to London, or I really want to go to Paris. Maybe fly to one of the smaller cities and go by train to the major city. Mm-hmm. And then, because the airfare to, one of the more distant airports is often less expensive than the major airports. And that's easy to do. You don't necessarily need to rent a car. People think, oh, I have to rent a car. No, you don't. Trains are great, particularly in Europe, but even in Asia, you don't need one. And that's, use public transportation. It's a lot less expensive. And again, you're getting to see how people live rather than being in your little bubble.
Mm-hmm. Well, those are great tips, because you still have to do your homework, right? So if you travel, you still have to do your homework, but it's great to know that these are alternative ways we could save, money and still be able to travel. So I'm sure a lot of people appreciate that as well. And Karen, I'm curious, what do you think is the reason why? What is the thing that you're most proud of out of the book? What is the one or two things that you feel like if the readers grab your book and they consume the content and everything that the story sharing in there, that they'll walk away with? What do you think that is?
There are two outcomes from this, and it's funny because having read reviews and having read what people write on Facebook, I know that both of these have happened and they make me very happy. One is people who really don't like to travel read the book and go, I feel like I've traveled the world without ever having gotten out of my armchair, and I loved it because it's so, I get such a sense of what the place is like and what the experience is like without having to do it. And there are places in there that most people are not going to go to. I've been to the far reaches of Indonesia. I've been to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. I've been to, northern Japan and Hokkaido. Lots of unusual places, out in the bush in Tanzania. They're not places that people go to, but you'll have that experience. The other one, the one that makes me really happy, is I read it, and the next thing I started doing was planning and actively looking to take a trip. And that to me is the best thing. Somebody reads it, they get totally inspired and go off and travel. Mm-hmm. So those are the two outcomes that I know have already happened.
That's amazing. That's really, really awesome. And the other thing I was going to ask you, how do you think all these experiences, because we talk about personal development in this show and personal growth, how do you think all these experiences have helped you grow as a person so far?
Well, for one thing, the thing that you learn, and the more you travel, the more it gets reinforced. People tend to think there is one right answer. And the reality is there are many right answers. There's not one way of doing things. There may be the way that you're used to and you know about, and that feels comfortable for you, but it's not the only way. And you become much more accepting of other people and the way they are in the world and how they think. And it really opens you up to other people and to other ideas. And I find that my creativity is far greater because I've been exposed to so much. And I can pull from lots of places and people and ideas that I don't think I would ever have thought of had I not had these experiences.
Well, that's powerful. Gives you perspective, because a lot of times we're into our own bubble, but just like traveling opens up your mind, opens you up to different ways of thinking even. And it just like, I feel like makes you a whole person. And then you're able to bring back to your personal life, your community, your family. So yeah, that's really, really cool stuff. Karen, where is it that people can find your book if they want to?
Anywhere that books are sold. That's certainly on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. And excuse me, if you go onto my website, there are links to where you can buy it. It's everywhere, pretty much. And I hope people do read it, because I hope I get more people to travel, because that really is the goal. And it's because I started to say that I'm writing the second book. And the second book, the first one is sort of a memoir. And it takes me from when I was 6 years old to literally March 16th of 2020, which was the last day that regular flights were coming in from Europe. I'd been in London visiting friends. And so it's a lifetime. But The next one, I already have the title for it, because this one is Travel Mania, Tales of Wanderlust, or Stories of Wanderlust. And the next one is going to be Travel Mania, People, Places, and Food, because I have lots of stories about interesting people, very unusual places, and people love food stories. I've discovered that that's more than almost anything. People love food stories, because if you think there's something that ties the world together, that would be it.
Yes, it's one of the pleasures of life for sure. Food brings people together, no matter where. It's a common universal language.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
We will be definitely attuned for that next book, but for now, I'll definitely go grab a copy, and I hope everyone will get to travel virtually with you. It sounds like just through the experience that you had and inspiring other people to travel, and that's. I would say the two things that are most important that I figured out, at least personally for me, is travel more and do what you love. You know, do what makes you happy, follow your passion and purpose, and then travel more, because all of those two add to one another. So for a more fulfilled life, I think that's what most people are looking for. Karen, then I have lots of authors and lots of people that might be listening to this, and they want to write their own first book maybe, but they have, the blocks of, I don't know what to start. They don't know if they're a good writer, all the things that block most people from starting to write. What would be your advice for someone that wants to start writing their book, either through their life experiences or their professional experience? What would you say to them?
Start by setting a time every day, even if it's a short amount of time, when you sit down and you write, and you do not get distracted, which is hard for a lot of people to do. But if you can do it consistently, what you're going to find is it gets to be a habit, and you almost crave doing it. I write every single morning. And the other thing is, once you've written for a while, start taking some workshops or join a writer's group. I've been in a writer's group I've been in two different ones for about 15 years. And I find that it's one of the most valuable things I can have, because you're surrounded by other people who are interested in the same thing, who have different kinds of skills, and who are reading your work critically, as opposed to giving it to friends who say, "Oh, I love it." Well, yeah, but they're not necessarily writers, and they're not going to say to you, "Oh my God, what were you thinking?" In a writer's group, if you get a good one, they will give you very, very useful critiques that are constructive and will help you to write even better. And it takes a long time. I mean, I've been working on this forever. I've been writing for a very long time, and it takes a lot of time. And you have to be willing to have that commitment.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have it and you really want to do it, it is absolutely doable. And now that it's not just a few major publishers, there's lots of independent publishers out there. It's a lot easier to get a book published or self-published.
Yeah, I feel like writing is a skill, and it has to be practiced just like any other thing. I know when you first start, as I also am launching my book soon, it's just you get writer's block. You just like, I don't know, I'm not sure, how to start. But then once you start, you are right. You just figure out you have a lot of things to actually write about. But being consistent is definitely a key with that.
I'll give you one other tip. Don't edit as you go. Do not edit as you go. Just write it all out, then go back and edit. Because otherwise you're going to find yourself agonizing over every word and every sentence. Just write it out, don't think about it, then go back and edit. Because that's, I think the reason that a lot of people get writer's block is that they feel like every sentence has to be perfect before they can go on to the next one. And that's kind of a recipe for disaster. So, and I had to learn that one. And it's, once you get it, you get it. But it's people kept saying it to me, and I kept saying, well, but that's what I'm doing. And then I finally one day had a big, aha, I get what they're saying.
Yeah.
And then, okay. And then my writing got much better.
Mm-hmm. For sure, perfectionistic tendencies, we all have them and want to autocorrect right away. Yeah, I had the same realization, but I feel like you have to go through that process and then you
Oh, yeah.
just figured it out, you know, you just like, okay, you can't just like dissect the book every 5 minutes because then you'll just always get stuck and you'll never move ahead. But if you
Right.
just like write from your heart, I feel like it's very healing also, the writing process. I don't know if you could agree with me. It's very healing
Absolutely.
as you're just like bringing everything out and you're just putting that into a book. So
Absolutely.
um, Karen, thank you so much. We actually have reached the end of our interview. Thank you so much for your time, and I really hope people will get inspired by your interview and listening to why you wrote the book to actually grab a copy as well. And I want to personally thank you for all the help you've given me with your mentorship. You're definitely an amazing mentor, and I'm so lucky to have known you. Thank you so much for coming on today.
My pleasure. Always fun.
And we will see each other next week on another show. Bye, everyone.